Somewhere or other, we are live. We are hopefully at some point coming through live in my Facebook group, the Business Growth Community, live on my LinkedIn profile, and also live on YouTube. We might have some technical challenges going on, but we're hoping that things will be. Oh, look, LinkedIn's just said Paula Cohen is live right now. How exciting!
Oh, excellent, great. Let me share that.
I do need to make sure I haven't actually got any sound on there because that won't be good, will it? Okay, fab. So we are somewhere or other. We are going live now. I'm going to apologise because I can see there's people watching us on LinkedIn and they've probably already left. There seems to be some sort of technical glitch with coming through to LinkedIn Live. So at the moment, I think you're just getting a black screen, which is a bit rubbish because obviously Kelly and I look amazing and we're fabulous to look at. The strange thing going on with LinkedIn at the moment, though, is that this is what happened to my last broadcast. I don't know why it's happening. Can't quite get to the bottom of it. But it seems to just be a black screen. But then actually, once we finish, it actually pulls the video through. So you can sit and look at a black screen.
I think it's actually working. I think it's working all right, Paula. I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, just shared it and it looks all right.
Maybe I just can't see myself. It perhaps won't allow me to see myself. So fine. Okay. So we are live anyway in 3 random places. So let's get cracking. Good morning, Kelly. Thank you very much for joining me. So we are talking this morning about the joys, the trials and the tribulations of defining your niche. And just in the conversations that I've had with people when I've posted up about this conversation today, it's been really, really interesting to see the feedback that we've had and hear all the different questions that people have got. So I think we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today.
There were some really, really interesting questions.
Yeah. But first off, Kelly, tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and how you came to be where you got here.
How I do it. So I'm a marketing consultant and I specifically work in the niche of accountants. People ask me often, and that is a real often, why accountants? So when I started my business 8 years ago as a social media consultant, my first client was an accountant, and I've never not worked with an accountant since. We have complementary skill sets. I am definitely not numerical, and they're not necessarily trained in how to be a marketer. So we have complementary skill sets. So the past 8 years has been a real journey of working with anybody and everybody to then settle on, actually, do you know what, where I'm most valuable and where I enjoy my time is now with accountants. So I run a company called Accounting Pirates, and it's all about being a little bit different, standing out.
Yeah, and that's very you. Fab.
Yes.
So we've got Lloyd watching us on LinkedIn, and funny enough, he says he's got a black screen. I've no idea how I got here, but he seems to be enjoying it. So welcome, Lloyd. We're very happy you're listening, and not watching. So Kelly, when you came to this point of saying, I'm going to get super specific on who I work with, and I'm going to say I only work with accountants. Yeah. What went through your head, and what doubts did you have, and how long did you contemplate the decision?
How long? Well, that's a good question, and I'm not sure I can give an accurate answer as to how long I contemplated it. But I do know that I struggled for years and years and years. I was good at what I did, but I picked up all the clients at networking events, and every client I picked up was super different, and every client I worked with had a different process or different requirements, and it was just a bit much for me. So I worked with a law firm, and it probably took about 2 years. I think 2 years. So I worked with a law firm for a few years, and 2 years of that I was a bit unhappy.
A bit
unhappy. And I was still working with accountants, and I realized that I had to niche if I wanted to achieve my goals. And it was a flip of the coin, really. Do I go with accountants or do I go with law firms? And I just said, I like accountants more. There is more going on in that industry. I can provide more value. So probably 2 years of dwelling on it, and then an instant decision.
An overnight decision after 2 years of contemplation. So we've got interesting things happening today. I can see that Kate's watching us on Facebook, and Kim's found us on YouTube. And now I'm fascinated because I've not actually had a comment come through on this stream before from YouTube. So this is really exciting.
Well, I was on Kim's live yesterday, so thanks for joining, Kim.
Fab. So did you have any specific doubts? Did you have any, worries about cutting off part of your target audience and, suddenly not having a big enough audience or anything like that?
Yeah. So when you nail your flag to the mast, it's terrifying. What if it doesn't happen? What if I look like a complete and utter fool? What if they don't like? What if they don't like me? What if they don't turn up to my party? It's all that kind of emotion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was terrifying. I think the way that I coped with that is I made my business as fun as possible. And I just wanted to do my thing my way, and I didn't want to fit in. So that's how I got over that fear.
So do you think, to a degree, by being very general initially, was that an effort to kind of fit in and comply and do what everybody else was doing?
Yeah, it's just following the same track, really, and it's fine. There is a question in here that says, "Do I need to niche?" No, you absolutely don't need to niche. Like, it really does depend on what your goals are. When my goals shifted, and when I had more clarity about what I wanted to achieve in the long term, and my vision was clearer, then it's like, well, I need a vehicle to be able to get there, and this is what that is.
That's a really good point, isn't it? That actually says it's not about making a choice on a niche because that's what you think you ought to do, but it's about taking that step back and really going over the basics, getting absolutely clear on your vision and your mission and your values and who you want to work with and who you make the biggest difference to.
Yeah.
Okay. So what has been the difference for you since you decided to go down this very focused?
I've loved it. Like, it has brought my business so much energy, and I think when there are massive benefits to niching, you get known. It's easier to cut through the noise. You can do creative content, like starting a podcast. That was a lot easier. So I don't have phenomenal amounts of listeners. Over the year that I've been running it, I think I've had 2,000 downloads, which isn't like crazy numbers, but if you break that down, it's like 160 something every month.
Better than a smack in the face, isn't it?
I'll take that every day because I'm talking to an audience, a specific audience, and I know that they are my target audience. So I'd take 160 of my target audience over a couple of people that I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
So it's given me the ability to talk directly to people who can influence or become my customers.
Yeah, fab. And what's the difference in terms of clients recognizing you, invitations that you're having, your brand, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I because I started a podcast, and I definitely do credit the podcast for the elevating me, to help elevate me and integrating is a better word, integrating me into the niche. I invited somebody on there at the beginning of the show, and she then invited me to become a panel expert at a conference at Accountex, which was last week. And I won't hide the fact, and I said this on the live yesterday, I was over the moon. I'm like jumping about. This is all part of the growth and the progress. And that opportunity would never have arrived if I was just another marketing strategist. It just simply wouldn't be there.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and actually Kim has commented to say that she chose her niche as a result of identifying her typical clients who live in their head. They were more likely to be challenged with overthinking and overwhelm.
Yeah, which is why Kim works with accountants, because that's what they do.
Overthinking all day long. And then we've got an anonymous comment from Facebook user that says, "Hello, two of my faves."
Yeah.
Whoever you are.
Who are you?
We'll find out later. Okay, so we in my Facebook group yesterday, I posed a question about what are your biggest hesitations or questions around niching, and what would people like to ask you, Kelly? And we have some absolutely stonking questions here. So Dave says, perhaps a harsh question, but I know Kelly will be up to this one. During the recession and at the time of the credit crunch, and then again in the pandemic, I recall some marketing and design businesses struggling and even folding due to the fact that they'd niched down and they worked exclusively with sectors that were severely affected by the events. They weren't able to adapt fast enough. So can it actually be risky to niche?
Yes. Yeah, the very short answer is yes, it can be risky to niche. Accountants are not going anywhere. I'm relatively confident that there will always be accountants. There will always be more accountants and more accountants and more accountants, because that's just the nature. But there are risky industries, and you have to weigh up whether that industry is the right one. And if it isn't, you might want to niche your marketing as opposed to the entire company. So this isn't a new concept. Niching is not new. Let's just put that on the table. And especially in corporations, niching your verticals is like, that is what you do.
You're going to need to tell us what niching your verticals means now, because it sounds uncomfortable.
So you have vertical markets. So you have your business industries and your types of business. So you'd never, say you're an IT distributor, which is something I used to work for. If you just went out and said, we're an IT distributor and we help IT resellers, like, that's absolutely rubbish. What you need to do is you need to get the products, and you need to make sure that they're going to the right types of businesses. So you have to niche your marketing, but you don't have to niche your business. You can sell as much as you want. And what's massively misunderstood with accountants, and I'm going against the grain with some very well respected people in this field, actually having a website that has various niches on it does much better for your SEO than having a niched website, because you rank for more key terms that's all associated. Yes. So yeah, niche your marketing, not necessarily your entire business if it's risky.
Yeah. So it's really interesting, that question about, is niching risky? Because funnily enough, I was just filming my next set of vlogs yesterday, and one of them is about how to deal with a recession, or how to get ready for a recession. Because of course, every time we get to this point in time, we see loads of people talking about pivoting.
Pivot!
Always an absolute nightmare. But funnily enough, one of the pieces of advice that I've given is look at who your market is.
Yeah.
Because even in a recession, even in a pandemic, there are always pockets of people, and some big pockets, that won't be affected. Now, to be fair, choosing accountants, they're naturally quite risk averse. They're savvy with finances. They do things like cash flow forecasting. So, you know, they're gonna do really well through a recession. But actually, when you think about your niche, it is worth thinking about who's, which areas are perhaps more volatile, which areas are more consistent, and just making sure that you're spreading your risk to adapt to that. So our secret viewer was Kimber. We can see you now, Kimber.
Oh, hey up, Kimber. I haven't seen you in ages.
Kimber's made a great point, because Kimber's gone all in on niching. So Kimber, it used to be, in fact, Kimber's done almost like a double niche. So Kimber used to be a general social media marketer, then niched into Instagram training, and has now moved into gamification, which is definitely quite unusual. And it's really interesting that Kimber says, is it harder? Yes, to start with, but people know when to come when they hear specific things. So you're talking exactly to your target market, rather than that sort of scattergun.
Yeah, and I think one of the points is that it's actually easier to refer people. Like, people want to refer to somebody that they know they can trust, and because you're an expert in that field, then they can trust you and they'll refer to you. So once again, being a general marketer, people will be like, oh, a social media guru, because that's all that they could come up with. Now what they say is, actually, I know a marketing expert that works with accountants. Can I introduce you? So it's an entirely different conversation.
Because previously you worked with accountants and lawyers and coaches and stuff like that, but she's probably dead good with accountants. Whereas now it's, well, actually, Kelly's a specialist with accountants. So there's instant credibility there, isn't there? Fabulous.
I don't know why.
So Dave asked another really good question. How do you manage conflicts of interest if you're dealing with several businesses in the same sector who might be in competition, especially if they're local to each other? Or from the other side, can potential clients be put off by concerns that you might be working with their competitors? I think that's a really interesting question.
Yeah, it's it's absolutely valid because it's absolutely true. There is risk in that as well. So once again, it comes down to the industry that you're serving and how they operate. Now, with accountants, I'm very lucky because they're very collaborative within that space. There's a huge community feel when you're talking to accountants, and they don't mind you working with the same people because actually you're still getting results that in their sphere.
Yeah.
But if I was working with a law firm and I was working with a law firm down the road that were doing the same things, they would be highly competitive, and that would be off the cards. That wouldn't be allowed. So yeah, once again, it comes down to industry, and there is a second point, especially when you're providing marketing services, you end up going up against yourself. So you're trying to compete for keywords, and actually you're fighting yourself and you're driving the cost up, and it's ridiculous. So there is something to say that if you're providing services, you should probably have them spaced out.
So if you were somebody like a Google Ads specialist, then just focusing on one industry is probably not a great strategy, is it? Because you would literally be pitching your clients all against each other.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's not the only way to niche.
Absolutely. How else would you niche then, Kelly?
Well, funny. There are tons of ways to niche. I think people get bogged down in it, and the easiest way to niche is industry. Let's face it, because you can just say, I serve people with pets, or people with dogs. Fine.
Yeah.
But actually, it doesn't matter as long as the people that you're niching for can recognize themselves. That's the criteria.
Yeah.
So you could be serving online businesses that are scaling to a certain number.
Yeah.
That would work as a niche. That's absolutely fine. You could be supporting local businesses to a particular area that have a green ethos.
Yeah.
That's also a niche.
Yeah.
So the most important thing is that your marketing, or that when they look at your marketing, they say, that's me, that is.
Yeah, they can recognize themselves. That's the key, isn't it? Yeah. Fab. Love that. Thank you. Oh, now Amanda, blimey. Amanda practically wrote us a thesis on this in her question. I'm going to just pluck out a few bits. Does niching mean that you're limiting your options? And is that an issue?
Once again, it comes down to your goals. It really comes down to your goals. So yes, you're limiting your options, but actually improves your business processes, improves your marketing. You can raise your prices. It helps everything. It helps people refer to you, so you get more opportunities. You get opportunities to speak. So yes, I guess you are limiting your options, but would you get that other business anyway?
Do you think it's a case of almost limiting your options to start with, but then expanding them gradually once you've become more known and you've got that reputation in that industry or that bracket?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I'm going to be working with accountants for a long time. So I'm not going to be branching out. But advice that I give to other accountants who are particularly risk averse and very worried about niching is start with an industry or start with a particular field, get really known for that, and then expand. So they don't want all of their eggs in one basket for the same reason that Dave said earlier, because you need to make sure that, a diverse portfolio is actually quite good. But if you become known in one field, that's easier. Then you become known in another field. And the other misunderstood point is you don't actually have to turn away business.
Well, this is a very valid point.
Like, the business you choose is your choice.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously that's often one of the really biggest questions, isn't it? That people kind of say that, okay, if Kelly nails her colours to the mast and she says she only works with accountants, well, if a lawyer comes and says we'd love to work with you, does that mean you're not allowed? Well, of course not. Now, you might choose to reject that business because you're absolutely all in on that niche, but it doesn't stop other people actually coming to you and saying, I know you mainly work with accountants, but we just love what you do. Will you help us?
Yeah, and that happens more than you imagine.
Yeah, there is that feeling that as soon as you say, I only work with these people, no one else will ever speak to you ever again.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's scary. But just look at the people who have niched and look at their results. What's going on in their world?
Good shout. So continuing through Amanda's questions, what if you have two very distinct ideal clients? So essentially you've got sort of two niches. Can you have two niches at the same time? Do you need to set up two completely different social profiles and target each and talk to each separately? How can you make that work?
Okay, well, you can do what you want if it's working. That's that.
That's the easy answer.
Yeah. But setting up two different profiles, when it comes to your personal profile, absolutely categorically no. So always be you, be true to you. Even if you have 100 different niches, always be true to you. But when it comes to pages, landing pages, even Facebook pages, if you think that the investment in making that page is worth it and is going to attract business, then do it. If you think that it's just a distraction and it's just another page and you're going to be working super hard and getting minimal results, don't do it. Yeah. So once again, niching your marketing is fabulous, but do it strategically. Don't just go, right, I've got 5 niches and I'm going to have pages for all of them. I'm going to manage all of them, because you just become overwhelmed.
Well, I feel like I've lost the will to live just at the thought.
Oh, I know, me too. I've just heard some pages. I'm like, phew.
Yes. Okay. Oh yeah. So I think we potentially already covered this. Does a niche have to be demographics or behavior, e.g., age, location, or people who like to read and research before they buy, or are there other ways to niche? I think.
Yes. So you're talking about an ideal client persona. That's not niching.
Mm.
So your ideal client belongs within your niche.
Uh-huh.
So when you're looking at their behaviors, what books they read, etc., that's just you trying to get into their head. So subtle difference, but there is a difference.
Okay. Okay. We've got some questions coming in. So Kim says, I think this is a big question. How do you get your niche to recognize you exist?
Shout. Shout and scream and jump around a bit.
Okay, the simple answer is it's your marketing, isn't it? But it's also it's being loud and proud in that marketing about who you're focusing on.
Yeah, it's being there in the community. Once again, depends on the industry that you are or the niche that you've chosen, but interacting with them is a better way of getting in front of them than expecting them to come to you. We're told that inbound marketing is the method and we have to put out this content, but actually, especially when you're starting out, going to find them and talking to them is a better way of being noticed.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to them instead of expecting them to you. Yeah. Yes. Now, Kate asks a really interesting question. If you've got a successful business already and you then niche, is that a good idea if it's different from your current clients?
Yeah, why not? I mean, once again,
do you think would it put off your current clients? Would it repel them almost?
Why would it put off your current clients if your current clients are being served in the way they need to be served? So no, I don't think it puts off clients as long as you make sure that they are happy. Would it? Yeah. If you're not, you might dilute your marketing message if you go after too many at the same time, and you might kind of confuse people if you keep changing between them, which is why when you're looking at corporations and they attack each vertical, these are big companies with big marketing spend. And niching for smaller businesses is great because it helps you cut through that noise.
Yeah,
that's a strategic change. But if you've got another product and you want to sell it to a different type of person, there's nothing stopping you. You just have to measure the results.
Yes.
See if it works.
That's it. Track your data. Make your decisions based on data, not on gut feel and winging it. And then Amanda's last question, which I think is a really interesting one. And actually, I think this is where loads of people struggle. She says, I attract a huge variety of clients and I can't find a single commonality between them. So current real life examples, video editors, coaches, authors, people with all sorts of hobbies and interests. Is it possible I don't have a niche is her question. But I guess the question is almost more a case of if you're struggling to identify that commonality, how do you then go about saying, okay, so this will be my niche? How do you kind of choose what you're going to pin your colours to.
Okay. So, and remind me of the business again, because I did ask for it and I can't remember.
Social media support.
Okay.
And PR.
All right. So in the same place that I was 8 years ago, I had a hypnotherapist, an accountant, a law firm, a beauty salon. It was all, and I was like, what is what is it that they want?
Yeah.
The real answer is they want the transformation. No, you don't have a niche. Your niche is actually your services, because you're providing one service. So if you're just having social media, that is technically your niche. Your client base is a diverse client base. So if it's working for you, and I feel like I'm sitting on the fence with this, but if it's working for you, fine. If you've got bigger goals and you want a bigger company, if you want to have more clients, if you want to become known and recognized and do talking and all of that sweet stuff, then maybe you need to define your niche. At the moment, the thing that's probably driving your customers to you is the transformation that you're offering. So you're helping to fix a problem, and if you're successful with your marketing, they can see that, and that's why you've got different clients.
So are you essentially saying that the transformation in itself can become the niche? If she feels like she's a little bit general and all over, can you actually niche towards the transformation?
No, I think that's not the niche. I think it would be lazy for me to say that's the niche, but it is the reason people are buying.
Okay, so how does somebody in that position pin down a niche that they want to work with, ought to work with, their customers want them to work in?
So the way that I work with my clients is I don't call it a niche. I say, let's find your focus. Where are we going to focus? So first of all, we discount everyone that we don't want to work with.
Good plan. Very good plan.
Get rid of them.
People should do that.
Yeah, not worth thinking about. Let's get rid of them. However you define that, let's look at the perimeters of what we're working with. Then I say, well, let's try and segment them the best we can. Is it industry types? Is it size of client? How can we group them together? There is a way. I will challenge you. There is definitely a way to group these together. Are they starting up? Where are they in their life cycle? Are they starting up? Have they existed for a few years? What pains are they experiencing? So segment them.
Okay.
Then focus on, who do you enjoy serving? Who do you love working with? You can just say, not them, not them, not them. Actually, these are really good fun.
Yeah.
And then you can start to define your niche. And also, it doesn't have to happen overnight.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well, actually. I think people do think it has to be this sort of massive epiphany, and like, as of tomorrow, I'm only marketing to exactly these people. And as you say, I mean, yours was not, it was an overnight decision after 2 years of pondering. So I think it's very rarely a pure overnight decision. It is a bit of an evolution. So,
and then I took a year, by the way, because I relaunched Otaku, which was my social media brand. I relaunched Otaku, and then I realized, actually, after a year of working that and having the podcast Accountants Are Sexy changed my mind, then I was comfortable to go all out. So now Accounting Pirates is an extension of my confidence.
Yeah. So you've started in one way, and you started gently, as it were, clearly but gently, but then you kind of ramped it up as your confidence has built. So yeah, good plan. Okay, so we've got a question on screen from Kate, but we've also got a question yesterday from Kirsty, which I think is an absolute whopper of a question. So Kirsty Grimes asked us, what if one of your core values is inclusivity and diversity for people? For example, I see a lot of people who work only with women, but as a massive fan of things like drag, not only do I not want to niche on women, but if anything, I would want non-binary / gender fluid and trans people to feel as comfortable as a man or a woman. I'm aware you can niche your market or niche your offering, etc., and offer those to everyone, but that's my struggle on the niching side, and while talking about ideal client avatars. So are we being exclusive when we niche, which means we're not fulfilling a value of inclusivity or diversity?
Well, yeah, I guess. but don't do it. Like, if your value is inclusivity, as is mine, then I would never like just work with women or just work with men, or I have clients of all descriptions. That ranges from, or I've had clients of all descriptions: disabled people, neurodiverse, within the LGBTQ community, all descriptions: white, pale, stale, male, which I hate, by the way, but old, typical older gentlemen, young women, older women. So if your values are inclusivity, then find something that fits that. At the moment, I'm putting on an event because that's my value. I want people to recognize human to humans. So I'm using my platform again as a vehicle to encourage people to be as inclusive as possible. And that's one of the benefits of niching. I couldn't have done that if I was a general marketer. No one would listen.
Oh yeah, absolutely true. So you have your event is the Accountants Uprising event, which is all based around culture and inclusivity. And
I'm super excited. We've got you. Paula's kicking off the day, or off the week, because it's in 3 mornings, by the way. So Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and I'll drop the details in if you need it. But just on this inclusivity, we've got people talking about men's mental health. So from the Modern Man's Club, we've got people talking about radical recruitment. So from the background of homelessness, or how to be more inclusive in your recruitment processes. We've got people talking about teams and culture in the business, which is really important, like to encourage people from all backgrounds to become leaders. We've got somebody talking about making a decision who knows Gordon Frew. So he's in talking about how to make a bloody decision, because all of the information that you gather during the week is useless if you don't do something with it.
Absolutely.
So loads more going on, but that's my core value.
So coming back to Kirsty's question then, I think the answer essentially is that you shouldn't and you mustn't do anything in your business that you actually think conflicts with your values.
Definitely.
But when it comes to niching, make it complement your value. There is still a way that everybody can choose a niche and be, to a degree, exclusive, but without that contradicting your values. It's about understanding what do your values specifically relate to, and making sure that you build that in. And if anything, using those values to strengthen your niche, not to feel like it's a limitation or a restriction. So
100%. And also, this is more of a marketing thing than a niching thing, but talk about those people in your marketing, because if you're not, it doesn't matter what values you have, they're not gonna know. So talk about what the work that you're doing, the events that you go to, the support that you have. Talk about all of this in your marketing, and you'll attract the right people to you.
Perfect. So we have one last question from Kate. I am conscious we've run slightly over time. I was fairly confident today we were never going to quite squeeze this into the 30 minutes, but we will wrap it up in the next few, because I'm conscious of other people's time, even though we could talk all day. But Kate asks, so is your ICA, your ideal client, is that part of your niche? And what factors make a niche? So it sounds like it can be lots of things, sector or geography. So I think perhaps people are just struggling to differentiate what's an ideal client versus what's actually a niche. Is there a way for you to narrow that down for us at all?
So if we look at accountants, that's my niche. My niche is accountants. But my ideal client isn't an accountant that has just started up. So I can't offer the best value for that person. So somebody who's worked for a few years in the business, somebody who wants to scale, somebody that's looking at implementing change, preferably with a team, that's my ideal client. A small team at that, not even a big team, a small team. So my ideal client is narrowed down, but my niche is accounting. So I speak to all accountants, but that I do the best work with this particular type. Once again, doesn't mean I can't accept business from people who are just starting out or even bigger or slightly different. I picked up some work for a payroll software, a piece of payroll software that was launching. So that was a nice side project for me, still within my niche, not my ideal client.
Okay. So I've just thought of an analogy, which is probably a terrible analogy to try and explain this. This might be very bad. But So your niche is essentially, it's choosing which sport you're going to play. So you're going to play football rather than play rugby, but your ideal client is like choosing which position you're going to play. So that's the real specifics of where are the, you know, the nitty gritty essentially, isn't it? The ideal client is the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
The niche is almost the borders or the parameters.
Yeah, I like it. It works.
I think, well, maybe you can have it. I don't know. Maybe I should trademark it somehow. Okay. So I think that covers all the questions we had in advance, and we've covered all the questions we had as we've been talking, which was fab. Anybody that's stuck with us on LinkedIn, then my black screen is still over here. You are literally the most loyal, wonderful people on the planet if you've stuck with us. The video actually will come through once we finish talking for some strange reason. But yeah, Kelly, thank you so much for today. I think it's been really, really interesting. Loads of great feedback there. If somebody feels like they need a little bit of help from you, because you're not a niche specialist, normally I'd be saying if somebody needs more help defining their niche, tell them what they can do. But in terms of if somebody does want a bit more help from you, what's the best way to get hold of you, or what kind of stuff have you got on offer at the moment?
So definitely come and join me on LinkedIn. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, what background you come from. I always love talking to people on LinkedIn. So that's a really good place. And it's also where I favour putting some content out. And if you are interested in diversity and inclusivity, I would welcome you to come onto the event as well. So I will drop a link in. Doesn't matter if you're an accountant, it's aimed at accountants. There will be a lot of accountants speak, but the information will be relevant to you as well. So come and join us.
Yes. So my session on that day is talking about, do you have to make a choice between culture and profit? Are the two things mutually exclusive, or actually are they partners in crime? So it will be targeted slightly towards accountants, but it will be, broad enough for loads of people to take lots of value. So drop us all the links to all of that, Kelly. That will be fab. Thank you so much to everybody who's watched with us today, and everyone that chipped in with questions in advance and questions during the day. Kim's off now. She's off to shout, so her ideal client can find her. Kate says thank you both. It really helps. So wonderful. Kelly, drop all your links into the posts once we've gone off air. And for anybody that watches us on replay, do feel free to keep adding in questions or comments, and both Kelly and myself will keep an eye on those. So we'll more than happily come back and answer any additional questions you've got. So thank you, folks. Have an amazing Friday, everybody, and we will see you all very soon.